Hello everyone, welcome to my loft on this April 18th, 2023 day. It is gloomy, it is overcast, it is, let me see, 41 degrees Fahrenheit. I figured that this kind of weather would return after being so almost unreal warmth that we had over Easter and for quite a few days following. And but now now we're back to what we're back to normal. I guess, at least for this part of Canada at this time of the year. So if you hear a dog barking in the background, please bear with it. There's nothing much I can do. I had Jason put my air conditioner in last week because it was so warm, and it was up here in the loft anyway, because of course heat rises, and up here in the loft it was getting to the point where it was almost unbearable. And of course you can't have your computer where it's super warm because it's not good for the computer, and it's not good for me. So I had him put my air conditioner in, so part of the window is gone, and any noise from the background, of course, is gonna come plowing right in here, as though the dog's right here in the room. And so, as I say, if you hear this nonstop barking going on, I'll listen to this video before I upload it to YouTube to find out just how bad it is, because if it's too bad, I'll have to wait and do this in a little while. And after the dog goes in, the dogs live in the house, and of course they they've just come outside to do their business, and which they have to do. So cheers, everybody. I wanted to come on today and do another update on Return to Autumn Part 2. This is the cover of Return to Autumn Part 2, and it is the third and final part of the Perils of Autumn story that continues in Return to Autumn Part 1 and finishes in Return to Autumn Part 2. And I sent the last revision, which is the final revision, back to my producer last night for him to incorporate. I think there was 20 minor little things that needed to be seen to and fixed, and then it's good to go, and it'll go into its next step of the publishing process and get uploaded to Amazon, and when I'm ready, it's published. And so that was the reason why I had pushed the release of Return to Autumn 2 back to near the end of April, because it was there was a lot of problems that were happening, that and it's time consuming, and as I've mentioned before in my videos, I'm not my producer Dawn's only client, and so I have to wait my turn. And there's a lot of things I can do myself, but there's a lot of things that I need Dawn to do for me, and making sure that everything gets uploaded properly in the publishing process, uploading it to Amazon, and making sure the cover fits, and the interior is fine. They don't find any problems where they won't accept it. And other than that, it's pretty straightforward. And then we have to do the hard copy and the Kindle, and so everything takes time. And So this is why I decided to wait until near the end of April to actually publish Return to Autumn Part 2. And so it's going to pretty much turn out that way. And as I said before, I wanted to tie the release of this book in with the running of the Kentucky Derby, which happens on May the 6th. And so, it's just kind of a little way of giving a boost in SEO, search engine optimization, tying it in with the Kentucky Derby. Anybody that's the way SEO works. If anybody's putting in their search engine Kentucky Derby, the Perils of Autumn Part 2 will also come up. And it's very ingenious, really. It's a great way of marketing things, where years ago that we didn't have that kind of stuff. And so as much as the internet can sometimes make you want to pull your hair out by the roots, there's also some really cool parts of it that you can use to your best advantage, and help you out in areas in marketing. And so I'm getting excited, as you could well imagine. It's been from the time The Perils of Autumn. It was released in January of 2019, and that's 3 years ago, and then of course the pandemic happened, and that really set things back. It put a stop to any events, any public events. The last book signing I did was for The Perils of Autumn, and that was in March of 2020. I believe it was the first Sunday. I don't recall the date right off the top of my head, but it was at Ancaster Indigo. I remember that, and I remember the day being a very nice day overall. And I had some copies of Willow's Walk with me as well, but it was primarily for The Perils of Autumn, and so and I knew, that Return to Autumn Part 1 would be next to, promote when it got produced and got published. And I released that last November of last year, just in not long before Christmas, actually. And it's doing quite well. It's getting some really good reviews, and that's always wonderful. That's always great when you can have 5-star reviews, especially, and because that is the largest amount of stars that you can get, the best rating that you can get. And as I've spoken about The Perils of Autumn in the past, when I was going to do a follow-up, I was just going to do it in just one novel, and of course the page count turned out to be too large, and I didn't want another grand scale, and so Don and I decided to divide it into 2, and that's how we come to Part 1 and Part 2. And this was decided back before I put out Return to Autumn Part 1. And so now, the attention will turn to Return to Autumn Part 2, and it will go through its process the same as Part 1 did, for offering reviews for people to review it, and I'm hoping, fingers crossed, I'm hoping that it will garner as good of reception as Return to Autumn Part 1 has managed to do. And so for me, it's as excited as I am for this second part to come out. It's bittersweet for me because it means the end of the story of Cyril and Autumn and everybody at Land and Lawn Stables, even Duff Taylor, and so when I was going through the final revision, it's always in the back of your mind, like this is going to be the final go through this, and this is that this is the end of the story, and you get all the tie-ups in the end, and you find out what happens to everybody and what becomes of everybody, and and so for me, as I've said, it's very bittersweet because I have so enjoyed writing this story and spending time with Cyril and Autumn and William and Manfred and Agnes and little Abby and now little Drew, and even Duff Taylor, as much as a pain in the side he can be, and the problems that he causes, is still, a character out of my head, and so I'm just, especially for Cyril, because y'all know how I feel about Cyril Landon, this fictional character, this I guess perfect man that I've conjured up. If he could actually exist, oh my heavens, I think he would just be absolutely wonderful to meet. He would be the most distinguished English equestrian horsemaster, and so to me he's extremely handsome, like for an older man. He would be, if he actually existed, I mean, he would be older than me a little bit, and of course by the end of the book he's much older. He's at the very end of Return to Autumn 2, he is 93, and Autumn is, let me see, 58, because there is like 35 years between them. And I've had in reviews where some people they kind of wondered at the age difference and how that could work. In reality, I don't know how well a 35-year gap would actually work. But I'm a true believer in love and true love finding its way. The heart chooses who it wants to love. It doesn't matter how old someone is or how young someone is. Love is chosen by the heart, and of course this is what happens with Cyril and Autumn. And at the beginning, I mean, she comes to look after Cyril's terminally ill wife Alice, and this happens in the Perils of Autumn. That's how Autumn comes to Landon Manor. Autumn, as you know, is a registered nurse, and she's sent to Landon Manor on assignment to care for Alice Landon, who is terminally ill and is not expected to survive, which of course she doesn't. And Autumn is there for 5 months before Alice passes. And and of course, because she loves animals to begin with, she loves horses, and Cyril realizes this. He realizes that she goes out for walks on her breaks and goes to the stables, and she's watching the horses and all the different activities that are taking place, and so when the time comes and Alice passes, of course, normally um, Autumn would have gone on to a different assignment elsewhere or gone back to St. Joseph's Hospital in Lexington. And but because Cyril knows that she really is very taken with horses, and he offers her the chance to learn to ride, and he would personally teach her, and and she accepts, and they have noticed each other um, in a very being attracted to each other, and but of course they could not act on that because of Alice, of course, and it would not be right, and but after Alice is no longer there, and a bit of time goes by. Um, Autumn remains at Landon Manor, and she's taking private riding lessons from Cyril, as well as Manfred Montgomery, and but mainly Cyril, and and they just over time become connected, and it doesn't matter the age difference. The age difference matters to Abigail, Autumn's mother, in The Perils of Autumn, because Abigail feels, and rightfully so, that Cyril is too old for Autumn, and she is against her daughter becoming romantically involved, and of course Cyril is the one in the end really that turns Abigail's ideas around, because she is she's denying Autumn she's denying Autumn's happiness, because obviously Cyril makes her very, very happy. In reality, I could easily see where Abigail would be coming from, and rightfully so. But Autumn is a very headstrong girl, very much like her mother in that way. And she gets an idea in her head, she's going to do it. Come what may, she's going to do it. And so, but in the end, Autumn becomes very upset with her mother, because her mother is not relenting on standing against her daughter's involvement with Cyril Landon, and Cyril is the one that reminds Abigail, first and foremost, that she should be concerned about is her daughter's happiness, and she is happy. She is ecstatic. She is so happy. She is totally in love with Cyril Landon, and he with her. And it's through a conversation that takes place between Cyril and Abigail, where Cyril sort of lays it on the line, really, because he sees how Abigail's rejection of the whole thing is affecting Autumn, and and Autumn's welfare in every aspect is first and foremost in Cyril's mind, and he's not having her upset. And so through the conversation he has with Abigail, Abigail starts to see things differently than what she was, and so she starts to soften and ends up accepting Cyril and giving Cyril and Autumn her blessing to marry, and of course that's what they do. And now they've also got another wall that they hit with Cyril's longtime friend and his housekeeper of Landon Manor, Agnes Harris. Cyril and Agnes grew up one street back of each other in England, and each came to America around the same time. And they came from very poor backgrounds, and where there wasn't much of anything. And that was the main reason that they both knew they had to find a life outside of England. And they grew up in a place called East Woodchester, pardon me, South Woodchester, and it's fictional. I don't know that it exists. I'd have to really research England to find out, but the place came to me, and I like the sound of the name, and it was like a small hamlet, wouldn't have even been a town really, and but it functioned sort of as such, and both Cyril and Agnes grew up there, and became best friends. Agnes is 1 year older than Cyril, and so they part ways, of course, when they grow up, and each come to America at a different time and into a different place. But in the end, Cyril ends up coming to the Meadows to work for Oliver Green for Oliver Green Stables, and Agnes Agnes is a housekeeper for a couple who, if I recall right, without having to look in the book again because it's been quite a while, whether they are leaving or what is happening, but she finds an advertisement requesting a housekeeper for Landon Manor, and she clues into who this is, and of course she contacts Cyril and ends up coming to work for Cyril and Alice Landon, and becomes very good friends with Alice and very protective of Alice. So I mean, after everything happens and Autumn is there and Alice has passed, and Agnes can see what is developing between Cyril and Autumn, she is dead set against this, and she just goes out of her way to make her feelings known, and so in a way she kind of feels that if anybody should be with Cyril after all this time, it should be her. It doesn't work out that way, and of course the day of Cyril and Autumn's wedding, Agnes is so against this that she makes this public statement by sitting in the Landon double parlor where the ceremony is taking place, and there's all these horsemen and horsemasters and their wives are there as guests, and of course William is the best man, and Abigail stands with Autumn, and the staff and everybody is there, and here is Agnes sitting there with a full-length black crepe dress, looked very gothic, and a black hat with a black veil, sitting there, sobbing and just making a total spectacle of herself. And of course all the staff, they kind of wonder whether or not dear Agnes has gone round the bend or something. But maybe like this was her way of protesting what was happening. I don't know, with the idea that maybe Cyril would realize how this is affecting his friend and not go through with it. But everybody just ignore Agnes, and and the ceremony takes place, and Cyril and Autumn are married, and everybody is congratulating them and clapping, and they're going to be moving into the huge dining room, where they're going to be toasting and having champagne and bourbon and punch, and you name it, it's there, and a lovely, finger sandwiches and what have you, and and it's all being catered, of course, and 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 Agnes just gets up and leaves, just goes to her room, and you don't see any more of Agnes throughout the entire ceremony. And so I don't know if some people would kind of feel that that was kind of a um, comedic break in the serious ceremony. I don't know, but I could about imagine if this were actually happening, just how it would look and how people would react to somebody sitting there. They get married, I believe it's in May, and it's a lovely day, and everybody is there in their finery, and the ladies in beautiful dresses, and here is Agnes Harris in this full length black crepe dress. Just I think it would have been it would tend to, I think, tickle your funny bone if it actually were to happen. And so but that was how I perceived the way Agnes was so against it, and and the way, because of that, the way that I perceived she would be on her best friend's wedding day, and and so I think the scene reads very, very well, and if you have read The Perils of Autumn, then you will know what I'm talking about and that particular scene. You have this handsome groom and this beautiful bride, and in this beautiful off-white shantung silk sheath that just skims her body, just flows over her body, and and Abigail in this lovely pastel pink ensemble, and beautiful huge hat, and very in keeping with Kentucky and horse people, and then you have Agnes and her black crepe. Just be, it would be very, very humorous, uh, and I'm sure the guests would probably be having a lot to talk about later on. That's for sure, about what took place at Cyril Landon's wedding. so, so if you read it, I hope you enjoy it, and so that's my update for today. Everything is moving along, um, and I expect that Don will probably have the book back to me, the PDF back to me, um, within a few days, and all I have to do is check the list of where the corrections needed to be, check them out, make sure everything is fine, and I can sign off on it, and then it, as I say, it goes on to its next step, and we still have, I would say, the better part of 2 weeks before we get to the end of the month, and so you know, taking into consideration any unforeseen thing that may turn up between now and then. But you know, both Dawn and I have been through this at different times, and so um, you know, if I can't cope with it, then he does, and he helps me through with it, and so this is the first Return to Autumn Part One, and Part Two is the first time that Don has actually published the interior of the book. He has done my covers, with the exception of the Perils of Autumn, because I published that book through Tellwell Talent out in British Columbia here in Canada, and of course they did the cover and everything like that, and but Dawn and I have always done the covers of my books, and Return to Autumn Part 1 and Return to Autumn Part 2 is no exception. And again, you know, lovely covers, tells you the story by looking at the cover, really. And I am most pleased with that. So I'm going to sign off for now. I'll be back in a few days with another update, let you all know what's going on, and so you know, fingers crossed, you know, toes crossed, and that everything goes fine. So God's blessings to each one of you. Have a good afternoon, and as I said again, morning, if it's morning for you, or nighttime, wherever you are. I hope that you're enjoying your day, and you're all well, and you're standing strong and standing together against a lot of things that's going on in the world. So for now, I'm going to say bye-bye, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now. Peace out. Here, we get it right. There we go. Bye for now.